Hello guys, today I will show how to integrate Apache Kafka in a microservices architecture with Spring Cloud. I will show how to publish messages to Apache Kafka and subscribe to the channels. If you're ready, click on the subscribe button and let's go. I will use Apache Kafka to communicate between two of my microservices, service user and service mails. I want to send an email every time a user account is created. But what is Apache Kafka meant for? Apache Kafka, just like RabbitMQ, AWS SQS, or GCP PubSub, are message queuing services, message brokers. They handle queues of messages. Those queues have two ends, one for the publishers and one for the subscribers. Instead of communicating via HTTP requests, I can have a publisher adding a message to the queue and lets the subscriber read the message from the same queue. The difference between the HTTP request is that this is not real-time communication. I may have my publishers adding messages every minute, but my subscribers reading the messages only once per day. This decorrelates the problems of unavailability in both parts. I may have problems with the publisher, but I can still consume the existing messages. Or I may have problems with my consumers, but I can still add more messages to the queue. They will be handled later, when the service will become available again. I will start with the publisher, service user, which will publish messages to Apache Kafka. Let's start with the Maven dependency. I will start with the main Spring Kafka dependency. Later in the video, I will show how to implement the same pattern but with another dependency based on streams. Now, add the configuration to connect my microservice to Apache Kafka. I've specified the address of Apache Kafka and both the keys and values will be strings. The keys won't be used in the example of today, as I won't use tables but simple messages. Let's now add this property to my application YAML file. I will now edit my endpoint to call a mail service which will publish a message to the queue. I've specified the channel where I want to publish my message and which message to publish. That's all for the publisher. Let's go now to the consumer. I will start adding the same Maven dependency. As before, I need to configure the access to Apache Kafka. The consumers are grouped together. I will explain soon why. This is the default bin to configure the listener. And as before, add the bootstrap address in the application YAML. And finally, a listener to listen to the available messages in the queue. With this annotation, I have the channel I want to subscribe to. I have the message directly as an input parameter of my method, and the acknowledgement is done automatically if I exit my method without any exception. This was easy, right? Let's test this all together. Let's create my user. Here is my created user, and if I go to service mails, I have the message I've printed from the listener. As I said, there is another library to connect my Spring Boot application to Apache Kafka, a library which lets me consume the messages with streams. The message queuing is a pattern which is known to be present mainly in microservices architecture. I may want my microservices to communicate with a queue of messages instead of HTTP requests. A queue of messages behaves similar to a stream of data, like in Java 8. I don't know how many elements there are. I just apply some functional operations to my incoming data. This way, it's interesting to use streams when handling unbounded messages. Nevertheless, when I work with microservices, I tend to have multiple instances of the same service running at the same time, multiple replicas. How do I know which will consume my message? Here come the groups of consumers. I can configure a group of consumers which will consume a single queue. Kafka will deliver every message only once to the group, no matter how many services there are inside. Each service will be differentiated just by an index. On the other hand, if I want my messages to be consumed by multiple services, I can have several groups. This way, a single message will be delivered to each group. This case is useful if I want to apply multiple actions to the same message. Let's start updating my publisher microservice. I will start with the Maven dependency. I don't need anymore the Kafka config bin, where I've configured the connection. Everything will be done in the configuration file, in the application YAML. That's all. My mail service with the Kafka templates remains as it was. Spring will infer the configuration of the serialization upon the variables used. Let's go now to the consumer microservice. I also need to update my Maven dependency. And as before, I don't need anymore the Kafka config bin, where I've configured the connection. Everything will be done in the application YAML file. Here is the connection configuration, and here is the listener configuration, the group ID of the consumer. All I need to know is to create a bin named like that. The in remains for the input channel, and the 0 remains for the index of the microservice, and destination means the channel where it will be connected. Let's create this bin. As I said, now I will use a stream, a functional programming stream introduced in Java 8, a consumer. I will consume a K stream, which is a Kafka entity composed of keys and values. I won't enter into the details of Kafka in this video. And that's all. less configuration and consuming the queue with a stream. Let's make a quick recap of what I've done. I can use the Spring Kafka dependency. I've created a bean to connect to Apache Kafka. I've used the Kafka template to publish messages to a queue. In the consumer, I've used a similar bean to connect to Kafka, and the annotation Kafka listener to listen the messages from the queue. And with the stream dependency, I've added the binder Kafka streams dependency, configured my connection in the application YAML. The producer remains as before, using Kafka templates, and the consumer uses now a consumer of KStreams objects. With the stream dependency, everything is in the configuration. I just need to create consumers and reference them in the application YAML. I think it's easier. That's all for the video. I hope you liked it. If so, click on the like button and see you in the next video. Bye!